Welcome back. This story is, I'm sure, going to hit home for a lot of folks who are back at the office and working, with all the regular folks they've been working with for so many years.
All the same old jerks.
Basically, yeah, as it turns out, because that's what this article is all about. It's basically identifying jerks that you happen to work with, but not just your general jerk. No, they're broken down into 7 different categories, and this is actually quite fascinating. And, of course, the most important part is, never mind identifying them, how do you deal with them? You have to work with these people. What do you do if you know they fit into one of these categories? So we thought we'd try to find out. Tessa West is an associate professor of psychology at NYU, and she's also author of the book, Jerks at Work, Talks at Coworkers and What to Do About Them. She's on the line. Tessa, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, look, I want to run down a couple of these because, as I said, I'm sure people will recognize these right away. First of all, I wanted to start with this particular one because I know that, in the world of social media, we talk about gaslighting all the time. What's a gaslighting jerk? What do you recognize here? How can you tell you're being gaslit by someone at work?
Yeah, I think we've heard this word a million times, right, in the past 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years. I think what makes a gaslighter really distinct at work, which is a little different than how we talk about it on social media, is that they lie to you, but their goal is to create an alternative reality for you that usually is there to protect them in some way. So they're either lying about their productivity or they're stealing, they're trying to hide something. And the way they do that is by isolating you from everybody. So if you used to be invited out for drinks, you used to contribute a lot in meetings, people kind of hung around your office, they saw you at the water cooler, and then all of a sudden you have a boss who's telling you, you really should keep your mouth shut. The only reason why you still have a job here is because I stand up for you. But, you should lay low for a while, stay off the radar. That's usually a huge red flag that someone is either already gaslighting you or preparing you to be gaslit in the future.
So you recognize that. Then the question is, okay, once you recognize it or it becomes apparent, what do you do?
So I think the instinct for a lot of us is to confront jerks at work. And sometimes that's actually really the opposite of what you should do. I mean, the moment we realize someone's gaslighting us, we might want to scream at the rooftops, this person's, torturing me, and go tell their boss and tell their boss's boss. But the reality is this person tends to be very well connected and they have a lot of power at work. They've probably also built up a good case against you just in case you do confront or you do challenge them. So what you really need to do is kind of go back to square one, build your social network back up brick by brick. So start small. Start with the folks that you used to hang out with socially who maybe are in the same office as you. They're at the same level as you. So I'm not talking the boss or the boss's boss, but people who hold jobs that are in similar positions as you. Kind of bring them back into the fold. One thing you can do that isn't so scary is if you do want to approach people in power, do so not to complain about your gaslighter, but to ask them for feedback on what people think your reputation is at work. What do people think of me here? Chances are the answer you're going to get is, you still work here? We forgot about you. They're not thinking about you at all because your gaslighter's done a great job of isolating you. So you really have to build that network back up slowly, steadily, and get people who have a lot of social connections to help you gain kind of a circle around you of protection. Those are the folks that you're going to need to then help beat your gaslighter. Don't try to go it alone.
Tessa, I feel like a gaslighter is a very similar type of jerk at work that would also be a credit stealer. Am I right in suspecting that?
Yeah, gaslighters do all kinds of things to make their victims feel horrible about themselves and have no self-esteem. And one of the things they do is actually take credit for the hard work of others while making those people question their contributions at all. So if you're in a meeting and you say something and then a gaslighter comes along and they say it in kind of a much more coherent, often eloquent way, they get the attention for that idea. You might even question yourself, was that even my idea? I'm not quite so sure. That person said it in such a nicer way and they're getting all this attention. And that's another skill the gaslighter has, is they're able to kind of pull away credit from you, pull away social support that you're getting by doing it through these kind of very public, conniving ways. So you're definitely right on with that one.
And I'm imagining the worst thing you can do is like stand up and say, hey, that was my idea.
Yeah, don't ever do that.
Don't do that. No.
It makes you look petty, unfortunately. And I think when it comes to credit stealing and bulldozing and all these types of people who dominate meetings, fighting them by being louder and angry tends to not work. You actually have to do a lot of behind-the-scenes work of doing things like what we call in social science gaining voice. So that means that when you say something, people listen to you. They don't interrupt you. All ears are on you. The ideas that you have stick to you and not to other people. but that actually requires you to develop a lot of social capital outside of the boardroom or the meeting room. You become a person that people like the boss and others go to for advice, go to figure out, who's good on teams and who's actually really lazy. Those kind of small little connections gain you status. You bring that status with you to the meeting, and then that way it's very hard for people to steal credit from you. It's very hard for them to talk over you in meetings.
All right, next up on our Jerk at the Office list, I like this one. They are called free riders, and what I love about this one, Tessa, is the fact that you say their main skill, the free riders, is that they tend to be charming. What's that mean?
Yeah, we don't like to admit to ourselves that we fall victim to charming, good-looking colleagues who know all the best gossip, and I live in New York, can get us into the best restaurants. So we tend to actually let them get away with kind of spreading their work equally among the team members. Most people on the team will say things like, it's actually just easier for me to pick up the slack than to bug this person. So they do this. They also really target teams full of conscientious people that work really hard and teams that like each other. So they don't go after teams where there's a lot of fighting or there's other free riders. They go after these really strong teams the boss isn't paying that much attention to because they trust them to do well. And so free riders are really, their skill is in kind of identifying these teams and then charming their way to getting away with doing almost nothing. But when they do work, it tends to be visible, and it tends to be things like presentation-based. So they're well-spoken. The team will work for weeks and weeks on something, and then they'll stand up in front of the room, present it to the boss for 4 minutes, and then all of a sudden it looks like they've done a whole bunch of work, get a bunch of credit for it. The team is kind of granted credit as a group. Nobody really realizes what's happening, or if people do, they just kind of underestimate the influence it has on them.
Okay,
Wow.
There's so many. By the way, the rest of the list, you can see it. We'll post it, but you have one you particularly like
I
here?
just kind of want to ask Tessa, is a jerk, like a jerk is a jerk is a jerk, or is there a worst kind of jerk possible?
I definitely think there is some jerks, so I categorize them kind of in two ways. There are jerks that have kind of really terrible motives, and they will seek out situations that allow them to take advantage of the situation to be jerks. So kiss-up, kick-downers, and gaslighters kind of fall into this category. They take advantage of weak people who are disconnected. So those folks have more of a personality issue. Then there's the folks who actually don't have anything. There's nothing really inherently wrong with them. They might even have some good traits like conscientiousness and attention to detail, but the situation turns them into jerks. So people like micromanagers who are, they care about doing well, they care about getting things right, but you put them in a situation where there's, a fear of failure or no training in management, and they can only sort of micromanage their old job. Those people, I say, are kind of less bad in the sense that they're really victims of the situation more than the former type that will seek out situations that allow them to be their bad selves that they're motivated to be anyway.
And before, we're basically out of time, but I just got to squeeze in one last question. Do the jerks at work know they're jerks?
Nope, definitely not. Most people don't know they're jerks. We don't give feedback very much at work. People lie at exit interviews. We tend to only find out we're jerks by maybe hearing gossip through the grapevine or years after we've left a job. So don't think to yourself that if no one has complained to my face, that means I am not a jerk. Chances are someone probably thinks you're a jerk. And, I'd go so far as to say is we're all capable of being some type of jerk. You just have to learn what kind of brings that out of you, what kind of stress and anxiety or feeling overwhelmed turns you into the worst case version of yourself. Learn to identify those things and replace those behaviors with something that's a little healthier, a little more effective. I'm a little more negative on this front. I think we all have a potential to be not awesome at work, but that's okay. We can learn to change and get better.
Yeah, that's right. We all have the potential to be jerks, boys and girls. Just keep that in mind.
Yep.
The book is called...
Don't being a jerk.
The book is called Jerks at Work, Toxic Coworkers and What to Do About Them, Tessa West. Tessa, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Take care.